The Honest Garage Podcast, where real shop owners tell real shop stories.
Today on the Honest Garage Podcast, we're talking with a shop leader who didn't come up through one straight lane. He came into automotive through parts, mobile repair, banking, programming, corporate chains, and enough real-world experience to know exactly what kind of shop he never wanted to run. Our guest today is Todd Santos from Ken's Auto Center in San Diego, California. Ken's Auto Center has been serving the Mira Mesa and Miramar area since 1999, operating as a full-service repair shop with diagnostics, brakes, suspension, engine and transmission work, tires, and general maintenance. Reviews show a strong reputation for detailed communication, quality work, and the kind of customer experience where people leave saying they finally found a shop that they can trust. What makes Todd especially interesting is how much of the shop's current direction seems to be flowing through him. In the prep call, he described stepping into a business that needed stronger management, better follow-through on the original mission and values, and a fresher way of doing things. He came in with a pretty unusual background: banking, underwriting, programming, biotech data, parts, mobile mechanic work, and big corporate automotive experience. And he used that blend to help stabilize and reshape the business. Todd also talked about one of the most important truths in this industry. There are enough broken cars on the road that you don't need to make things up to stay busy. That belief runs all through the way he talks about service. He's seen the bad side of the business: dealerships and other shops overselling work, pushing packages because the paper says so, replacing parts that don't need replacing. And he's made it clear that if he's going to be a part of this industry, it has to be done differently. That mindset seems to be landing with customers too. Reviews repeatedly call out Todd and Cindy by name, praising their honesty, communication, and willingness to explain what's needed and what can wait. One recent customer even mentioned that the shop's diagnostic process included detailed reports, photos, and videos in a way they hadn't experienced elsewhere. In this episode, we're going to dig into how Todd brought a fresh management lens into an existing shop, what's actually working right now to build trust and repeat business, and how he thinks about profitability without sacrificing fairness, and what other repair shop owners can learn from someone who's trying to modernize a long-standing business without losing its soul. Todd, welcome to the Honest Garage Podcast. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good.
I'm good, man. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you. It's been a busy day, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we'll take your mind off of the busy day at work, and we'll focus on the busy industry at large. So one of the things we start by asking people on the show is really, what's the car that got you into this industry? It seems like for most people, it was either the car that kept breaking on them that they had to keep fixing that was their first car, or a dream car that really inspires them. Where are you at?
1966 Ford Mustang 6-cylinder, white with a teal interior. Seriously.
First car or dream
First
car?
car. It was actually literally my first car. I got it. I purchased it from my aunt back in 95-ish for like $400. And that car needed so much work, and I didn't know how to work on anything. And I was just kind of learning as I went. And a carbureted car, it would stall on me on Miramar Road. I'd have to push it out of intersection. When I was going to college right after high school, I was driving it in the parking lot, and the wheel bearing froze up and sheared off the knuckle, and the wheel went one way and my car went the other way. That car was more of a headache than anything, but it finally got it fixed after lots of research and going to lots and lots of junkyards trying to find the parts that I needed. But I've always had like a passion for cars themselves, like just the whole mechanical aspect of it, just the being able to make locomotion from gas and air, and that just makes a car go forward, and then actually translate that locomotion into like a transmission, and then putting power to the ground. And so yes, across the board, I've had a lot of cars. I've owned a lot of cars. I think by the time I was 26 or 27 years old, I almost had a car a year. What I mean by a car a year is like a car for how long I've been alive. So I already had 27 cars at one point, and I kind of get really super focused and would focus on one car. At one point I had 5 first generation RX-7s that I was ripping apart and rebuilding and all that other stuff. So yeah, that's my passion. I've always kind of liked doing that. It's just like trying to figure out how things work and take it apart and put it back together, make it better, or learn how, just learn. Just it's really what it ends up being.
That kind of describes a lot of what we talked about in the prep call about how you kind of got into the industry. I know we touched on it a little bit in the intro, but your path really was not like one dimensional. It's not like you grew up in a shop and took over a parent's business or anything like that. Why don't you walk us through that journey a little bit and how you got into the role you're at now with what you're doing at Ken's Auto Center?
So do we have 10 hours? Because that's a long journey. No, in high school, so my first car was a 66 Mustang. My second car was a 78 Toyota Celica. Third car was an 88 Mazda 3. This is all happening in high school too, by the way. And because I kept buying cars because one would break and I didn't know how to fix it and would have to learn. But so just working on cars throughout high school and stuff. And this was back in the day when you couldn't just buy like a power steering pump off the shelf. You could, but it would cost too much money. It would be like for a broke kid like me, like power steering pump was like $50, but the power steering pump rebuild kit was $12. So
Yeah.
so just with my natural ability or natural liking of being able to dismantle things and take things, put things back together, I worked in that industry for a long time. I'm not in that industry. I worked on my own cars for a long time. My dad worked on cars, but just as a hobby. My grandpa would work on cars as a hobby. But after high school, I was going to college. I actually didn't even really have a major or anything. I just didn't work. I didn't like college. I didn't care for it. And
Yeah.
at that time, I even got a scholarship too, and I used it, but it wasn't working with me. So right after high school, I kind of started working in a place called Columbia Pacific Telecommunications, and I was basically at 18 years old making $30 an hour. Why would I want to go to school? I'm making more money than most 18-year-olds were making back then. And I was installing telecommunications, and I did that for a while. And then when that kind of lost that side of it because of 9/11, ended up getting into business banking and finance just because it was availability. And I started off as a processor, and I grew to being a processor and to becoming an actual underwriter over at Temecula Valley Bank before they closed. And then since that was still what I was doing, I was like, okay, I need a job still. It was a stock market. You remember the crash in 2007? I don't know. Some people do,
Yeah.
but so that my bank actually got closed up. There was chains on the doors. FDIC shut us down. Didn't have a job. Then had to find another one, and I found one in the same industry, but I was doing the actual backside of it, basically taking away people's homes when someone would default on a loan or whatever, and I had to back underwrite it, do all this stuff, and I hated that. I hated making people sad and taking away their entire lives. And it just was done. And so from there, I wanted to excel, and I had a lot of knowledge and experience in doing computer programming and Excel spreadsheet programming and data analysis. So I kind of started working at Petco Corporate over here in Miramar, doing all the pricing for nationwide. I would call Petco's, and not Petco's, but PetSmarts and Vaughn's, and start doing data analysis, like how much more, how can we adjust our price to be competitive, or can we price them out of the market, or all an analytical side of actually looking at the numbers. And then wanted more money, so I ended up going over to Shire Regenerative Medicine and working there as a SQL database programmer for all the production line that they were making for their product called Dermagraft. It was like it's like a skin, like a synthetic skin that they put on for people with diabetic foot ulcers. And when the United States government decided to cut funding for Medi-Cal or Medicare, and calling the Dermagraft skin thing as basically a bandage where it costs like $1,000 for a little square about this big, and to be grown, the company just folded, and that information just got sold off, and I don't know what happened with them. I don't really care. But after that, like I got married at the same time, divorced now with Cindy, who's my current partner. Don't want to get married again. Don't need that. But after that, I wasn't struggling for cash. I had plenty saved up, but my ex-wife at the time, she really wanted to open up a restaurant. So I kind of helped help her open up a restaurant after she graduated the California Institute of Arts for Culinary. And I actually learned a lot more there than I think she did, because I kind of ran the business better than she did. And that's kind of where I started learning about things like lost leaders. Like, for example, this perfect example, Costco has their $1.99 hot dog and a soda. That hot dog costs way more than $1.99. So that's when they do that to draw the customers in, to keep them there, have them eat there, and then have them go inside so they're not hungry, because anybody who goes to Costco, you can easily spend 8 hours there. So that's when I started learning about lost leaders. And when I was running her business, she was all over the board with her menu. And I realized that, you know what, everybody at a bar really wants is a burger. And I figured out how to create a burger that was so good, but also be able to keep it somewhat profitable, like 20% profit, and be able to pump it out. And that was the breadwinner. So after the restaurant, I got a divorce, didn't want to deal with her anymore, didn't want her to take my money, started working at AutoZone, of all places, because I didn't care. And the people liked me there so much. And when I was at AutoZone, I was only there for 6-7 months. I started there, and in 2 months I was already the assistant manager of the store, just because I like talking to people. I like trying to solve problems. And there was a point at AutoZone where people would stand in line specifically just to talk to me so I could help them out with their car problems. And knowing that this is all because of my past experience, still working on cars this entire time, whatever, like a off and on hobby. I've built cars, I've turboed cars, I've just whatever. And then that's when Christina Waters over at Sears Auto Center basically pilfered me from AutoZone, and she put me in charge of the assistant manager. And that's where I started seeing how structure and SOPs and throughput really was coming to. And I also worked in between there. Oh, after that, I quit because I couldn't stand her anymore, because she was just the way the business was being ran. I tried to step in and try to help her make changes. And, I think this makes more sense doing it this way. No, we're going to do it my way. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Don't care. Quit. Didn't even give notice, actually. I quit that day. I walked into HR and I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. And then from there, I worked at a performance shop in Ramona, building rotary engines and all over the board on that. Popped around a couple small little shops. And I finally said, you know what? I can do this on my own. Went out and bought a $4,000 Ford Aerostar, put my toolbox in the back of it, and totally just drove around San Diego fixing cars. And I did actually quite well. And then, my parents got sick. I had to stop doing everything. Went through my savings pretty fast. And then met Cindy during COVID. And then COVID knocked me down for 2 years, however long it was. And Ken's was actually looking for a general manager. He put it up on Indeed. And I was at this point, I was like, yeah, I'm going to run out of cash. So I started looking in the because I did a lot of construction too. I wove that through the work. Did a lot of construction through work. And I was putting my name out there for being a property manager or a little handyman or anything just to keep things moving, get some income here and there. And when I saw the ad on Indeed for Ken's Auto Center, I was like, this is perfect fit. Come on. And one of my dreams has always been to own an auto shop, actually own and run an auto shop. And I have this really grandiose dream of actually having multiple auto shops, have auto shops all over the county, have auto shops all over the state, have auto shops all over the United States, but still keep the same feeling that this auto shop actually provided. And when I interviewed with Ken, we hit it off. It was perfect. He's a very genteel guy, and he's very honest, and you could see it and you could read it. You could read it in his facial expressions. And the interview lasted almost 2.5 hours. It was long.
Yeah.
And then I said, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. And even though I know I wanted it, but I really wanted to go on vacation, because I knew if I was going to start this, I'm serious. Even though I was on vacation, I really needed to be on a vacation, because I know once I started this, it's all bets are off, because what he was looking for was a unicorn.
Yeah.
And that's I went on a vacation and I started, and he unfortunately hired another service advisor at that point in time that was very green.
Okay.
But yeah, very green. And he was trying to be the manager. We butt heads, but I started working here and I actually really like it. I fell in love with it. Ken has seen how I've grown this place, how I've manhandled it to be what it is today. And it was basically built off of his original mission, vision, and values. But I saw it as a fact of there's lots of pieces missing, and we could go over those. But those pieces were missing is because over the last 25 years, he's only had one other manager here, and he passed away from brain cancer. He only had one other manager that actually was, I guess, on my level. From
Sure.
what Ken tells me, I've already far exceeded what this original manager did. But I
So,
took. Go ahead.
how long have you been there now? And I'm interested to dig into what were some of those biggest challenges when you first came in, either culturally, operationally, personally, as you were stepping in.
All of it. All of it. I have only been here, to believe it or not, I have only been here 2.5 years. When I first started, what was kind of cool, he was already starting to modernize the systems here, but not maximizing or utilizing their full potential. What I mean by that is we use TechMetric, which is a phenomenal system. And if anybody hasn't used TechMetric, and if you're still stuck on Mitchell One, get the hell off of that crap, because that sucks. I'm sorry, I just speak from a little bit of experience on that one. But we also use Steer, which is a nice CRM, and we didn't have any like warranty. We had WorldPack at the time, like TechNet, but it wasn't being sold, or all the key points were not being used of it very effectively. There was no procedures at all. There's zero. I walked in like I was thrown into a bag of steaks, and I had to fight them all off. Like, thrown to the wolves is really what it was. And so, yeah, I've only been here for 2.5 years, and like one of the biggest challenges was when I started was actually butting heads with that service advisor, and that service advisor and I got along with him. I worked with him, but what was going on is because there was no procedures, there was no way of actually structuring how a work order was done. And like I said, Ken was underutilizing all the software. I came in and I looked at the software and I was like, oh man, this is so powerful. We could do can jobs and packages and all these cool things. And the biggest problem that I had from the get-go was actually way Ken did things was very old school. And what I mean by that is we would get a phone call. We would get phone calls all day long. And someone would call up and they ask, hey, I got a 2007 Honda Civic. Can you quote me on brakes? It's okay. Have you been here before? No, I haven't. Oh, now I got to go in there, build a customer, and then input the car information. We like to order everything according to the VIN number. So if they didn't have the VIN number, I'm just kind of guessing, like 2007 Honda CR-V. But that's not so much the problem. It's more of a problem when it comes to the VW, where there's two different brake rotor sizes or something to that effect. Yeah. So I'm spending 20, 30 minutes on the phone, and then the phone's ringing again. And then the technicians are asking for help, or I got to write a check, or there's a customer standing at the front line. So one of the biggest things is one of the first almost immediate things I did within the first couple of months, first month actually, I sat there and restructured our entire way we do things. And I partnered, and I kind of had to force myself to partner. I didn't force myself. It was the hand that presented us. The O'Reilly's rep came in and he told us about all the good things about certified auto repair. So that kind of went hand in hand with their brake package pricing. And what I wanted to attempt at being able to pick up the phone and how much is it for the 2007 Honda brakes on a CR-V? Oh, it's $499.99. Pads and rotors out the door. Pads and rotors plus tax, 24 months, 24,000 mile warranty. Oh, really? Yeah, really, totally. Oh, it's also nationwide. Really? That's totally nationwide. Yeah. So that was like one of the biggest hurdles I had to get over, because when I'm spending too much time on the phone trying to like field these phone calls, and I get a laundry list of things I got to call back, then handling the shop, and then I'm handling the guys and answering questions and writing up work orders, it becomes a pain just to even answer the damn phone just to get another customer in the door. So that was start number one. And then start number two is instead of doing the same thing with oil changes, I totally just got rid of it. And I said, it's $89.99 for an oil change starting. That's it. Plain and simple. But there were so many other things that were challenges here. There's a laundry list. And so when I mean by getting the software was underutilized, was like not maximizing what you could get out of TechMetric, or actually utilizing and watching how the numbers the actual management side of the software. I mean, I saw that we were losing money on inventory. I saw that we were losing money on tech efficiency. I saw that our can jobs were written like you're still writing on a piece of paper. And all that is just because it's the old school way of doing things. And I did come from that. So I do understand. What I
Sounds
found
like you
absolutely,
were able to bridge the gap.
yeah, I think I did. And Ken, I don't think Ken knows how to write a work order anymore here. But coming from Sears and those other shops, we all used to have to handwrite everything. And one of the most amazing things that I found with TechMetric, and just this is the first nicest software I've used other than Mitchell One. And Mitchell, I still don't like Mitchell One, but it was the integration with the parts. That's huge. Just being able to go in parts tech and be like, oh, I can just look right there. It makes it super easy instead of making 20 phone calls to all these suppliers and then waiting for the part to come in. So that actually shaped our business a little bit more. It shaped our business a little bit more because we were now partnered with Certified Auto Repair, and they're literally down the street. And they're down the street is also one of the largest. It's like a mini hub. So they have most of the parts there, and O'Reilly's has revamped their entire structure on logistics. So now we get parts. I might as well have a dedicated driver. That's what I'm getting at. But because of the efficiency now has increased with being able to order things and not wasting time, I have now time to focus on other things. And the biggest thing that has increased for us is when you go to dealerships or any other shop. Oh yeah, we'll get the car done. When? That's a great question. Oh, today for us. They're like, really? Goes, yeah, totally. We got a ticket that's $2,900, and it's like some services, and just generic services, and then tires or whatever. And yeah, we'll get it done today. Totally, not a problem. And that's because we had developed that relationship with the O'Reillys down the street. It's because we were able to now be able to guarantee that we could get our parts fast. And that's now because I stand behind the parts, even though, yeah, we do warranty parts. I know some of the stuff is cheap Chinese. I don't, but the parts that's not really sells you on the customer here anymore. It's really actually being personable. And so that's the other challenge I had. And the reason why we let go of our first service advisor, because he was like talking to a door. There's nothing, no personality at all. He wasn't willing to pick up the phone and make a phone call. He was sending everything via text, wasn't willing to explain everything. You can't train personality, but what you can train is how to be a service advisor. And when my partner, Cindy, it's weird. We already spent COVID together every day. Now, I told Cindy, she used to work in retail a long time ago. And I told her, I was like, I actually think you'd be pretty good at this. And she's like, oh, I don't know. And she interviewed with Ken. And she's okay. Do you think it's going to work? Do you think you guys are going to be together all day? No, not a problem. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But yes, she didn't know anything. And then over the last year and a half that she's been here, she's learned so much. And she's actually another person that drives a lot of the business because she is so personal. So, those are some of the initial early challenges that I had to overcome. And every time I see a problem in the shop, whether it be efficiency or the way things are structured or inventory, that was a huge one. I want to tackle it head on. I might have a little bit of ADHD, and I might jump from one project to another project, but at the end of the day, I still grab it by the horns and wrestle it to the ground and actually make things better. Like some of the other issues we were having in the beginning is not parts, but actual inventory. We had a delivery truck for our oil, and I always thought it was weird that we're buying oil by the bulk by like quarts. And I always thought that was bizarre, especially when the quarts are like $4.99 a quart or $6.99 a quart, and how much waste you're generating, and then the extra steps, and then the inventory behind that, and the amount of space that it consumes. I thought that was so weird. And the other thing is there was no inventory control here. There was just all over the board. The guy would just come in and it's like, oh, this is what you need, and hand me a bill for $1,500. What the hell? What the hell is going on here? Yeah. That's not cool. So I sat there and wrestled that one down. I brought in bulk oil. I got rid of all the overstock. I sold overstock. I cleaned up the area. When it comes down to keeping coolant, because his biggest seller was coolant, because he gets it for dirt cheap and he sells it to him for relatively cheap. But you just push that cost back to the customer. And it's just the way it is. So yeah, those are some of the challenges that I had to overcome. And I also had to overcome the previous managers that dragged this place into the dirt. I'm not going to name names. It doesn't really matter, but they didn't treat this place with heart and soul and caring about the customer at the end of the day. I look at things to the customer. I want safety first, and I want them to come back. I want them to be able to call me up in the afternoons like, hey, what about that Padre game? Hey, yeah, it was great. That's how I look at things. And I think that's the reason why Ken likes me so much, is because that's how we kind of connected. It's just that personality, that just being able to be fluid and being able to handle other customers and be able to let the bad ones roll off your back and fire them, because I do fire a lot of customers. So yeah,
Well, yeah,
that's
I think you've got a really unique perspective since you're sitting in that manager role and not just as a shop owner, but you have aspirations to be a shop owner. And I'm curious, what advice would you give to an owner that's looking to find the right fit for a manager, like the role that you're in now? And then what advice would you have for a shop owner just from being in with your unique background? What do you see that's working the best that other people might be able to get out of this?
for a shop owner. Okay, for a manager aspect, I think a manager, because I've been thinking about this actually, just because when a little side note is Sydney and I are going to be purchasing this place at the end of the year. That's already set in stone. So January 2nd is going to be, yeah, I'm serious. January 2nd, it's going to be Ken's Auto Center run by Todd. But when you're, because I've already been thinking about this whole management aspect of it, and for a shop owner to be looking for a manager that can help them succeed, because that's really what it boils down to. You need to have someone who has good management and who can. They need to be able to wear a variety of hats, and they also need to be able to look at the inefficiencies and the manager has to be able to look at the inefficiencies and be able to address the inefficiencies, or be able to put out fires quickly. And you need someone who's well-rounded. It wouldn't hurt actually to have a manager that came from a technician background at all, actually, because then when the technician does come to you and ask the service writer questions, the service writer doesn't know, the service writer could fields that question over to me and I can answer the question. So you need to have someone who's at least been in the technician industry for a while. That's number one. Number two, I think you need to have someone who does have a well-versed in background. Basically, you're looking for a unicorn, but at least someone who has some sort of upfront retail experience, whether it be when they were 18 years old working at a hot dog stand, or they lost their job and they're 28 years old now and they're working at Kohl's or whatever. It doesn't matter. So I think you need to have someone who has a little bit of the retail experience, customer facing. And I think you also need to have a little bit of the technician experience, customer facing. And I think somewhere along the lines, that person also would need to have something where they did work for some sort of corporate structure, whether it be at a hot dog stand or Kohl's or Sears or whatever. So that way you do know how things are structured. That's my advice to an actual shop owner. For a general manager trying to like someone like me aspiring to be, what I'm looking for is I would be looking for someone who is willing to let you grow within the position and give you a lot of latitude. And what I mean by that is, I know it's Ken's shop and but he doesn't drop his iron fist and say, I want things ran this way. I still do talk to him about certain things. I still do run certain things by him. So in reality, at the end of the day, someone who's like my position, aspiring to be a shop owner, is it'd be nice to find someone who is willing to accept that latitude or relieve some of those responsibilities over to the general manager, so that general manager could grow the business, because they're going to feel more personally invested into it. Like I am. I'm personally invested into this. And I put a lot of energy into this. And like sometimes I cry at night because I put so much energy into this, because I hate it when people treat me shitty or not shitty, poorly. And I don't like that. So to me, I treat everybody the way I want to be treated. And that's where I go from that.
Yeah, that ties into something that we ask everybody that comes onto the show. We ask everybody about the phrase honest. We obviously care a lot about it, being this is the Honest Garage podcast. And all of our listeners, I think at this point, know I own Honest Mechanic Marketing. But when you hear that phrase like honest mechanic, honest garage, honest shop, what does that mean to you personally? And how does that show up in the mission and the vision and the values that you have at Ken's Auto Center on the day-to-day?
What honesty means to me is complete transparency. And that's complete transparency. I expect my techs to be transparent with me, and I'm going to relay that information, whatever the techs give me or whatever I do, directly back to the customer. And what I mean by honest, this is truly what I mean by honest. Case in point, let me just start off with one of my techs. I just hired a new tech about 4 months ago, and he's out of his 90-day. He came from a dealership. He's very green, but he's learning very well. And he was working on a 1998 Jeep Cherokee inline six 4.0 liter, and he was trying to put the lower radiator hose on. And there's a lot of shops now probably know that older cars are older than 2001. Parts are getting harder and harder to get for the most part. The lower radiator hose ended up being too short, or actually he cut it too short. And he didn't tell me. What he did is he drove over to AutoZone, picked up another one and put it on. And when I went out there and I looked at it, I said, hey, wait a minute, that's not the hose that I bought. This is a Gates hose. I don't remember what I bought, but it wasn't the one that I bought. And I thought I told you. He's like, no, you didn't. I know for a fact that you didn't tell me because that's not the part number. I said, where did this come from? He came from AutoZone. I said, I don't buy from AutoZone at all. Sorry. So where did it come from? So I basically grilled him, like really grilled him. I was like, at the end of the day, this is where the honesty comes in. Don't lie to me. Number one, don't ever lie to me. And if you do mess up with something, tell me. Like literally, that's where the transparency needs to come in. Because if that vehicle rolled out the door and it went to another shop, and it says on my work order that I put on whatever hose and there was a Gates on it, and another shop takes a look at it and says, oh, now I'm not being honest because I put a different hose on even though the part number's there. Or what would happen if the hose burst because it is a failure part, or it was installed incorrectly or something, and the vehicle comes back and he says, oh, I haven't taken it anywhere, but I see a different hose. I can't warranty the work that I did because I don't know if you took that car to another shop. And this is everything that I explained to him. So that's where the honesty comes in, is the complete transparency. And you have to be transparent with your staff first before you can be transparent with the actual customer. Because with the customer, when I tell them I break something, we break shit all the time. And I tell them like, oh,
yeah, I'm working on cars.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. Like we had a 2010 Toyota Highlander that my technician was doing a test drive and he smacked the mirror on the post. And I was like, oh, I told the guy, like, we broke the mirror. He's, oh, okay, how much do I owe? He was like, no, what are you talking about? You don't owe me anything. I'm going to fix it. And I fix it. And that's the transparency that you need to give to your customers. And then because if you have that kind of transparency, when you tell them that when they get the digital vehicle inspection report that we actually have here because of TechMetric, and we're very thorough, sometimes a little too thorough. And when we have that digital inspection report, and my one tech who came from a dealer's he drills down, some dealers do. He says, oh, the control arm bushings are cracked, or the sway bar end link boots are cracked or replaced. And then when we sit there as a service writer or the general man, me writing it up, we sit there on this little laundry list for a car that's worth 10 grand, throwing a bill at $10,000 a people. No, we don't do that. What we do is we address each issue that is mostly of a concern. And we tell the customer, you don't need to deal with this right now. And the reason why you don't need to deal with it right now is, number one, if you have sway bar end link boots that are cracked, we live in San Diego. When does it rain here? You just be open, and that's where the transparency comes in. So we don't sell the things the customer doesn't need, and if they want to do it, that's their own prerogative, not mine. We just tell them, we don't even actually write it up anymore. What we've done is we just set it on the inspection, and then they call us and we say, hey, this is how much it is if you want to do it. Is it a concern right now? No, it's not a concern right now. But we do try to still sell maintenance services. Because that's more of a maintenance thing. What we do is we take a look at the maintenance schedule. We have access to vehicle history reports, and we look back like, oh, you've already done a coolant exchange. We're not going to sell that. I don't want to do that. And there's times where we forget to waive the diagnostic fee, and I know that's contended in some shops, but we waive it. I don't care. I know it reduces our effective rate, but yeah, we waive it. And if we forget to waive it, we honor it the next time the customer comes in. It's, oh yeah, I'm sorry, we totally forgot to do that. So we give them a $190 discount. So yeah, it's really transparency. It starts off at the shop level. And if you could if the shop level is transparent with you, then they're going to be transparent with me and then the service advisor. And then I have no problems being transparent with the customer.
Yeah, I think that's great, man. And I appreciate the example that you give, because we asked that question for everybody, but that was a unique take on how honesty actually impacts at the technician level and at the customer level. Right. And I know we're kind of limited by format in terms of time, but as we're wrapping up, I just want to give people an opportunity to connect with you. That's one of the coolest things we get to do on the show, is kind of build a community. What's the best way for people to stay in touch with you, Todd, and with Ken's Auto Center?
You can either call the shop, and that phone number is 858-578-8200, or you can go to our website, and unfortunately there is a request a quote on there. You can actually just put in, oh, I heard from you on the podcast, I'd like to talk to you. Sure, not a problem. Oh, that's the other thing, just real quick before I finish up. One of the biggest things about the efficiency side of it, but remember I was telling you about fielding phone calls, about
Yeah.
quotes. Anything bigger than brakes or just oil changes, I just send that off to the website. And if they have the time to actually if they take the time to fill out the information that is required, then I will take the time to actually write up the estimate for them. And that's actually helped us out a lot, because it just makes it easier to be like, hey, if you go to my website, there's a request a quote button. Just fill that out and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So yes, those are the two ways to get a hold of me. If I have no problems even listing my email address, or you could make it flash up on the screen. I don't know. So I can email that to you. That's no big deal. Either telephone or email or request a quote. So
That's awesome. Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that. And I just want to say thanks for sharing all the knowledge that you shared today and for really digging into the details. You really got into the weeds a little bit on some of those changes. And I think that's going to be really valuable for some of our listeners out there who might be going through that transition between that old school leadership mentality and that next generation. So I just want to say thanks again for taking the time to be with us on the show today.
no problem.
And if you're out there listening and you got value from the conversation, connect with Todd. Fill out the request a quote button on the website or reach out to him via phone or email. You'll get a chance to call Cindy and talk to her briefly at the shop. She'll pass you over to Todd. It's great. And yeah, if you enjoy the show, please hit subscribe, review us. It helps other people find us. It helps us get to continue to have these great conversations with good shop owners and managers like Todd. And anyone out there listening, if you need real world marketing advice or anything, you can always reach out to us at honestmechanicmarketing.com. But other than that, y'all, thank you for listening. Todd, thanks one more time for being on the show. And as always, keep it honest in the garage, everybody.
You got to think of it as a whole. What is best for the shop at the end of the day? Am I getting complaints about this person? If you are, how many are you not getting?
Yeah, that's a really good
How many
point.
are you not getting? How many customers has this person already upset? Maybe 20 and only one person said something. Honesty, integrity is really everything in this industry. I know I already talked about my family name and how important that is to me, but in auto repair, like that one person that you wow them and they come in and they're like, oh my gosh, I have a review and you can look it up at Stapley's Garage. This person said, I can't wait to come back.